Okay, so we're on the Cartier Style Luxe lawn at Goodwood. There's a lot of vintage machinery here, there's a lot of weird stuff you'll never have heard of, some very old one-off things, and right in the middle here is instantly recognisable, the Dino. Not Ferrari Dino, it was just called the Dino, it didn't have the Ferrari name on the front, famously named after Enzo's son, and I used to have one of these. Okay, not really. My one was an Alfa Romeo'd kit car, which I got for £5,000 and sold on for £7,000. If I had been able to afford the real thing at that time, they were going for about £45,000. Now, you can put a zero on the end of that. They go for about £500,000, £450,000 for a good one. And this is, of course, the T-top convertible. Gorgeous. So here we have, in the Cartier paddock still, the Porsche 918 Spider, the electric hybrid car by Porsche, the insanely fast. Don't ask me the figures because I don't know them. What I do know about this particular car is that it's owned by a very nice man called Peter Saywell, who runs private track days at Goodwood for charity down on the circuit. How do I know it's his car? If you come around the back, you will see behind these incredible exhausts that come out the top here, the number plate AOG. Peter's business is aircraft parts, and this stands for aircraft on ground, because that's how he makes his money, where the aircraft are on the ground. So all his cars have AOG on the number plate. And I've been along to his track days a few times. He's been kind enough to let me take my Beetle around the track during the lunchtime track parade. And yeah, all the money he raises on the track days, he hires the track. He invites people along to take their own cars on the track day, and people pay donations for passenger rides around the track, and it all goes to charity. All local charities down in the Chichester area. Here we have the fabulous Maserati MC12, which I'm desperately trying not to touch it because it just looks so tactile. Beautiful blue carbon finish on it. The MC12 it's essentially underneath, it's mechanically the same as an Enzo, but it's the same as a Ferrari Enzo, but it's got its whole own body shell that's been created by Maserati, with a convertible T-top, so you get a more visceral experience than in the Enzo. This particular one's been entered by Joe Macari, supercar, hypercar dealer in London. What else can I tell you about it? Yeah, I mean, underneath it's essentially an Enzo, but on the surface it's this fabulous rebodied, incredibly long. So underneath, the Maserati MC12 is essentially a Ferrari Enzo, but on top we have this completely rebodied design by Frank Stephenson. The elongated body shell with the massive tail fin and the removable roof section to give a more visceral, open experience, to really hear the howl of that engine, because, you know, the Enzo is just not loud enough, is it? And this particular one, entered by Joe Macari, is finished in the fabulous dark blue carbon body, which just looks so tactile, you just want to stroke it. Beautiful. And over here, designed by Peter Stevens, who dug through the crowds. Peter Stevens gave a talk at Brooklands last year, and he designed the McLaren F1 here that's sitting alongside the Maserati. Only 107 of these were ever produced. Only 64 of those were road-going cars.
This used to be Elon Musk's car.
And this one used to be Elon Musk's car. Thank you for that, sir.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I didn't realise.
No problem. This one used to be Elon Musk's car, which he purchased in 1999 for $1 million, following the sale of his first company. This is all off the top of my head, you know.
Why would you stop right from it?
This is a 1998 Porsche 911 GT1 Strassen version. That's completely off the top of my head. It was built to compete in the GTI racing class. Porsche were required to build a street legal version. So this is essentially, it's a race car for the road. They wanted to compete in the race series and they needed a road going car to qualify. So they built this as a limited production version called the 911 GTI Strassen version. Only 25 examples were built, all in carbon fibre, to satisfy the GTI regulations. So the Bugatti EB110 here, again in the Cartier paddock at Goodwood. This was the car that kind of secured the rebirth of Bugatti, because obviously Bugatti has been around since time began. The EB110 kind of secured the rebirth. It was launched on the 110th birthday of Ettore Bugatti, hence the EB110, because it was launched on his 110th birthday. Almost a year later, Bugatti unleashed the full potential of the EB10's quad turbocharged 541 brake horsepower 3.5 litre V12 at the 1992 Geneva Salon with the 603 horsepower. Okay, how many did they build then? This is a unique example. It's the only right-hand drive EB110 ever built, with Supersport specification, but retaining a GT chassis number. Conceived for right-hand drive markets to help grow global sales and to ensure Bugatti's long-term financial stability. This right-hand drive EB110 was unveiled at the 1994 British Motor Show. This is apparently a 1914 Bedalia DB2. Interesting story. It came to be after Parisian students Robert Bourbeau and Henri Devaux crashed their motorcycle and decided to rebuild it as a cycle car, using a combination of their names, Bedalia. So they actually manufactured 2,500 vehicles between them, used their own 90-degree V-twin engine and V-twin Jap motors, belt-driven to an active rear axle. What I find particularly interesting about this car, you can see the belt drive on the side, looks a bit loose. The steering wheel's in the back. I mean, let's hope your passenger who's sat in front of you isn't too tall. You're just not going to see where you're going at all. And you can see the belt round this side here. It's, wow. Seems a bit loose to me. There you go. Belt-driven cycle car. And next to it is a Grafton, which is tiny. 1919 Grafton Blaireau. Single-seater. Yep, you couldn't fit 2 people in there. You're not going to fit a passenger in there. Built using a 1913 book, How to Build a Cycle Car. There's actually a modern-day version of that available to buy in Halfords, I believe. How to build a car for under £500. This one was constructed by Tim Gunn. There's a name I've heard before. Yes, the book How to Build a Cycle Car listed everything a budding cycle car builder needed, including the tools and workbench requirements to build it. This one is another cycle car, a 1912 Rollo Sociable. I'm presuming they called it a sociable because you can actually fit 2 people in this one. Built in 1913, survived the war. There's another belt drive on this side. And you even got luggage space on the back here.
I think cycle cars were just low powered.
Don't know.
And there's another sociable one next to it, the 1926 Seal Sociable. Now these were built in Manchester to enable a motorcyclist with a growing family to have a comfortable and weather-protected vehicle without a reverse gear. Didn't need a driver's license or road tax. So you can see why they were popular, and you can see the engine just kind of strapped to the side of the car here. So you can actually, it's a cycle car, so it's built around a motorbike. Well, it essentially looks like a motorbike with a sidecar, doesn't it? But there is, I believe, yep, there's wheels on the other side as well. 1 wheel on the other side. So it is like a motorbike and sidecar. So that's how they get round the driving licence and road tax issue. Very ingenious. You could squeeze a small family in there.
But if you'd have put the engine in the front, okay, we're going.
I found a relative to my Beetle. Porsche owners might disagree, but this was it came from the same roots as the Beetle. I've seen Porsche #1 in the Autostadt Museum in Wolfsburg in Germany, and it looks remarkably like this. And it looks very much like a Beetle, and it was Porsche #1. So you can see how the shapes evolved. If you look at the profile, it's still very Beetle-esque in this 356 coupe. You can still see the semblance of a Beetle there. And then the 2 models kind of went their separate way. The Beetle became more the saloon car, and the Porsche went more sort of squat sports car style. But you can definitely see the heritage there in this 1957 model. Another evolution of the Beetle here, 1992 Porsche 959. Yep, it's another Beetle. Sorry folks, it's another Beetle. They say although it resembles the 911, let's face it, all Porsches resemble the 911. They all look the same. No one can tell them apart. Sorry, Porsche fans. Apparently the 959 was more exotic. 4-wheel drive, twin sequential turbochargers. So that's what's special about this one, and it's got a big tail fin there. Actually, I quite like the tail. I do actually. I mean, joking aside, it is a pretty car. It is a pretty car. I love this curve here and the picnic table on the back. It's one of the more stylish picnic tables I've seen on the back of a car. So what's this car? What is this car? It looks like a Porsche 962. It's not. If you look closer at the badge on the front, it's not entirely like a Porsche badge. It's got a little prancing horse in the middle. It's a Schuppen 962, so it is based on the Porsche 962, but it's been reinvented by Schuppen, who drove for Porsche. He drove for Porsche.
And he built cars. I nearly got involved in a project with him to make
You did?
road-going versions
So you can tell me about this car then.
Well, I suppose this is the car that he was trying to make when I was talking to him about 20 years ago.
Yeah? So he raced the 962 for Porsche,
He was a race driver.
and then he redesigned it.
And he had his own factory, and he sort of built bodies for Porsche.
So rebodied the 962 to his
And he
own
wanted to make
specification.
when all the supercar things were going nuts,
Yeah.
he decided he was going to cash in and make a short production run.
But he only built
his
6.
name on.
Just 6.
Well, I don't know how many he made. We kind of gave up working with him because he was mad
Well, yeah, all the best people
and
are.
completely unrealistic.
Yeah.
Well, at that point, he wanted to charge £2 million for an uncomfortable car with no refinement.
Well, these days
At a
people
time,
think nothing of that.
That's nothing. In those days, the top whack for the Jag supercar was I think 200,000-300,000. So he wanted to charge 3 or 4 times as much.
Yeah.
And we just said we can't do that. We can't help you make a market for this. So we pulled out.
So he only actually managed to get 6 of them
Well, obviously
produced.
he then carried on, got 6 produced, but it didn't take off. So
Didn't sell many then at £2 million a pop.
he was truly mad.
Thank you very much. What was your name?
Simon.
Simon?
Yes.
Thanks. And the badge is interesting. I see it's based on a Porsche badge. It looks like a Porsche badge from a distance, but it's got a horsey in the middle. That's not original, is it?
That's him. That's him.